Hey there, Pete Erickson here with Modev. This is part of our Meet the Speakers series, and I've had a great time with these interviews because I get to meet people from around the world that are coming to Washington, D.C. And my next guest is no exception to that. We are thrilled to be having her come to the conference and provide a keynote. She is a well-recognized leader when it comes to technology. She wrote the book called The Disruption Mindset. She has a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn on leading disruption as well. Please welcome my next guest, Charlene Li. Charlene, welcome to the stage.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, thanks for being here. And, you know, I do feel so fortunate that you and I got connected to one another. And have to give it, as we start off here, I have to give a shout out to Brian Wish. Brian, thank you so much for connecting us. And he is so good at following through. When I have a conversation with him, he's like, I'm going to connect you with this person. And you're one of those people. So thanks, Brian. And thank you, Charlene, for accepting that connection.
Yeah, Brian's great. I don't know how he does it because he never takes any notes in meetings. He just remembers everything.
Yeah, it's great. It is wonderful. Well, you're going to be coming and joining us at Voice and AI, and we feel so fortunate. This is an interesting year in the history of technology. I think that 2024 won't be the same because it won't be the year that really shifted everyone's mindsets. And, your previous book was The Disruption Mindset. And I would love to ask you first, a little bit about, tell us a little bit more about you. I did a brief introduction. Tell us a little bit more about you, then I'll get into my first question.
Sure. I've been a longtime researcher and writer. I wrote my first book back in 2008 about how companies can use social media. Written a bunch of other books, total of 6 so far. So this is my 7th. And working on a new book about how we think about the business strategy around generative AI, because it's something that has come upon us so quickly, so suddenly, and across the board of our organization that it's nothing like we've ever seen before. So I said, this deserves a book. So I'm writing it as
Yeah, it
fast as I
deserves a
can.
book. And given your history, and yes, I guess I really could have mentioned in the introduction that you have written multiple books, not just Disruption Mindset. That book it resonates with me because I started off with a innovation series called Disruptathon back in 2009, and that's what led actually to Modev. But how do you feel? Yeah, this moment. The disruption mindset is probably something good to have at this time, just given the impact of AI on our businesses and our lives.
Right. And remember, we're at the very beginning of this curve. We're
Right.
just figuring it out. The technology is constantly changing. I don't know about you, but I wake up every morning with my hair on fire. Like, what else has changed? What new
Right.
APIs have been evolved? And so
Right.
we're all trying to figure this out. And to craft a long-term business strategy to make bets on something that's
Mhm.
still evolving is really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And we don't know what the benefits are. We don't know what the risks are, what unseen circumstances could come up. So it feels really risky. And I think we've
It's
been
very
able to
risky right
avoid,
now. I think
yeah,
you're
we've been
right.
able to avoid a lot of these kinds of decisions. We've been able to punt them down the road. But with
Right.
generative AI, it's coming in from all sides of the organization, and people are using it in their everyday lives. So they want to know how I'm going to use it at work, how I'm going to
Yeah.
use it with the companies I engage with. So we need to
Yeah.
have a strategy, even
You
if
can
the
use it
strategy
in
is nothing at this point.
Yeah, and I think that I use it every day. I use generative AI. And a year ago, I didn't, and today I really am using it. A year ago, we started to use some of the imaging. Midjourney was out there, DALL-E, and there were some interesting things happening. But ChatGPT really changed the game, and now there's so many different choices um, out there. And given that you are an author, this moment needs a book. You do have a book in process, and I guess it's on AI strategy, or really business strategy, with really a look at AI and generative AI. And maybe tell us a little bit more about, what you're thinking about this book, and when might we expect to see this?
Well, we're hoping to publish it this fall, which sounds a little bit crazy, but the technology
Right.
has gotten to the point where we can do that. And with print on demand, there's the ability to just constantly update it too as well, because people feel
Right.
like, how can you write a book that's going to be outdated as soon as it's published? And I'll go, because we'll keep updating it.
Right.
So
Right.
it's one of those interesting moments in time. where we could
Yeah.
actually do something feasible with this. And the book is really looking at how are companies right now thinking about this? What are some of the best practices around just even thinking about it? A little bit of a future, looking at what the potential way that's going to lay out over the next 12 to 18 months and even longer. But really block and tackle. How do you set up a strategy? How do you define the use cases? A gazillion use cases, you can't do them all. How do you assess your strategy that you have today and how it's going to change? How do you create competitive advantage? But very importantly, we took a look at the people because we think this is a technology issue. It's really a people issue. How are
Hmm.
people going to adapt? How are we going
Hmm.
to prepare our workforces? How do we prepare as leaders to lead this transformative change? Because
Yes.
I've never seen, I've been in the technology and business space for 30 years. I have
Yeah.
never seen anything like this.
Right.
And I covered the rise of the internet, the advertising dot com boom,
Yep.
social media, mobile digital transformation. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. And I think that yeah, it's interesting. I have talked to so many folks because we're also organizing a public sector conference called GovAI Summit in December. I've talked to a lot of government staffers, and they say, look, we're not supposed to use it, but I use it on my home machines all the time to help me with my work. Teachers are starting to figure out that generative AI can really help them be more effective with regards to lesson plans. I mean, my sister's a teacher, and she said, it is unbelievable for helping me develop lesson plans. I'm saving so much time. We've heard the anecdotes of doctors getting help with diagnosis. Now, you want to balance that with your expert opinion, but just to be able to save time, I think that that's one of the big takeaways that most people that are interacting with it today are finding. And I think that's probably where a lot of the opportunity lies.
Right. Instead of thinking about how AI is going to replace work or just be a substitute for advice and or information, think about it as augmenting. So a doctor spends a huge amount of time taking notes and then summarizing notes and putting them into the electronic medical record, or just responding to emails. If they can use AI to just help with the heavy lifting of that, more time with patients.
Right.
Teachers, instead of just thinking about lesson plans, an exponential way of thinking about this is, what if I could design a lesson plan for every single student
Every student.
based on
Right.
how they learn? Are they
Right.
visual learners? Are they auditory learners? Are they experiential learners?
Right.
How can I get other teachers? So instead of a ratio of 1 to 30, one teacher to 30 students, how do you get 30 teachers to one student? I
Yep.
mean, we're just talking about game changing ways of thinking about how the world
Mm,
works.
yeah. Yeah, it's a significant time. On the education front, I'm excited. We have Congressman Don Beyer moderating a panel on education and AI, and that's going to be a really interesting discussion. And um, he went back and got some more schooling around AI. He wanted to learn more, so he went and just got, you know, I think it was with MIT or one of the programs out there, and just took in more information so he can be educated himself. So it should be a cool panel. So now you've got your next book getting ready to come out. You're going to come and speak at Voice in AI. So I'm assuming that your keynote is going to focus on this intersection of kind of strategy and maybe the moment that we're in.
Right. Again, just thinking about more than what the technology does, how are you going to formulate a strategy around this? And the
Right.
process of how to evaluate your existing strategy, what is good with, is it still valid? Are the assumptions that you base your strategy on still going to be valid? And if
Hmm.
they're not, then how do you change your strategy based on the new data and facts? And also anticipating that things are going to keep changing. So we think
Right.
of strategy as a fixed entity that
Yeah.
you commit to for the next 5 years, and that's not the way to think about it. How do
Right.
you make your strategy adaptive and agile to float with? And someone who said it, how do you surf the wave of Gen AI? Not too
Right.
early, not too late, but you want to catch the very edge of it. So
Right.
how do you
Right.
figure out what that edge looks like?
I love that. Being a surfer myself, I resonate with that metaphor. I think it's great, and I do believe what I've noticed being close to the conversational AI space is I have noticed is sort of like a what now moment. Um, So maybe there were big, implementation plans or product plans that are sort of been put on hold and said, like, wait a minute, how do we rethink what we're about to roll out here? Because we're probably talking about 24, 36, 48-month life cycle on some of these products and some of these decisions. And it's like, do we want to start that right now? And I'm definitely feeling like the market has hit that moment.
Right. And a very viable strategy might be to wait, but you're doing that with intention.
Yeah.
You're thinking very strategically that things are going to change over the next 3 to 6 months. A lot more
Yeah.
tools and APIs going to be
Yeah.
available. So I can afford to wait,
Yeah.
or just the opposite. I can't afford to wait because the tools are
Right.
already out there. They're already proving value. So I'm going to
Yeah.
have to figure this now. I have to jump in now because it's not going to change that much over the next 3 to 6 months. So I see a lot of companies like, I just want to wait, but the
Yeah.
reasons why they're waiting is because they don't want to deal with the uncertainty. That's
Right.
not a strategy. So
Right.
decide to sit out, but do it strategically and intentionally.
And maybe it's time for experimentation. If you have a labs, a skunk works project that you can start to really experiment with things and really understand how they work. Now is a good time to be doing that for companies. Funny thing, Charlene, is we put our call for proposals out early and we ended them, I think, at the end of March. And then we realized, oh, we actually can't end the call for proposals now. And we actually ended up leaving it open until the end of June so that we could have the most fresh content at the conference. And that's worked out well. I mean, I think we have a very good representation of like what's happening out there. But even since the end of June to the conference, we've been introduced to people like you. They're actually going to bring in even fresher content and fresher ideas, probably right up to the moment, I would imagine, before we get together in Washington.
Yeah. Again, there are so many new things coming out. I'm particularly excited about the opportunity for private large language models, these
Yes.
enterprise ready tools. They're just not
Yep.
there now. I mean,
No.
I'm building my own chatbot, but it's a big hack, and I'm not a
Yeah.
technologist, but I'm able to do it. But the value
Right.
of that to me is extremely high because I'm
Right.
basically chatting with myself and
Yeah.
using it as
Yeah.
collaboration to be able to write. But I know it's only my content.
Right.
So
I think
it's
I
not
mean, when I think
no.
about, you've got 6 books, right? You have the 7th coming out. And so being able to take all your content and put it into your own large language model and then be able to talk to you about your own books. And it's
Right,
really, it
and
is
I've been, yeah, publishing on LinkedIn for the past 2 years. I have all these podcasts and live streams. I get
right.
permission. I'll be asking you for permission to take this one and put it into my
Sure.
engine too as well, but it's
Of
all
course.
IP protected and copyrighted by
Mm,
permission. It's stuff that I own or we have permission to use, but it's all my content. And
yeah.
so I know that I'm querying myself at some point, hopefully I'll feel comfortable giving it out to the public, and then people will be able to ask me, quote, "Ask me questions," and I
Yeah.
can give back responses. Hopefully that they're rational and not
Right.
hallucinogenic, so it's not something that I'm not completely comfortable with, but if
Yeah.
it's a useful tool, if I find it useful, other people could find it useful.
No, I think it's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
What is what do you think is a misconception out there that people may have related to generative AI, or maybe just even the market in general that you find is out there?
There's 2 of them, I think. One is that it's changing so fast and it's not ready yet, so I can sit it out. I don't even have to experiment with it, and I think that's a huge mistake because the reality is there are people inside your organization who are experimenting with it, and you wanna
Hmm.
tap into that and also just put in some basic policies for people to stay safe, some basic training for every single person, and that's
Hmm.
every single person who could be using it because even somebody in the field who's doing maintenance could be using generative AI to upload a particular spec or something saying summarizes. I mean, you don't want them to be doing that. It's proprietary data.
Right.
So
Right.
it's really important to just give some basic training to people so that everyone knows what they can and cannot do. So that's one basic thing. Is like at the minimum, take some proactive actions. So to acknowledge the fact that people are using these tools, you
Right.
can't just say don't use them and trust that
Right.
nobody is. They
Right.
are. They
Yeah.
absolutely
Hey,
are.
schools are back in now. So I mean, this is this is a global conversation that's happening at every pre-K and college and you know post 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 program, postgraduate studies program, is it's all happening right now.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
teachers have given up trying to say the students don't use it. Now they're
yeah,
trying to figure out how do we incorporate that into the
yeah,
learning process. And it's brand new. I'm speaking to all these educators and they're really having a hard time because it requires us to think in a very different way.
yeah.
And I'll give you one other example. There's a lot of concern
Please.
around how many jobs would be created or lost. And
Hmm.
there is an assumption in some ways that more jobs would be created by this than lost. And there's also this other cynical way of thinking, yeah, but the jobs that will be lost will be with people who can't necessarily replace themselves and go into these higher order jobs. And I think that's the truth, but I want to dig down deeper to say, how do we think about productivity in a different way? Instead of an absolute number, how do we increase the potential of every single employee in our company to do great work? We know
Hmm.
that there's a huge spread between your top performers and your
Hmm.
bottom performers.
Hmm.
So if we just increase the productivity and the capabilities and the confidence and the experience for our
Hmm.
medium and low performers, that is going to have a huge impact on the business. Because our
Hmm.
challenge today isn't trying to cut the number of people to increase the profits. It's we have so many more ideas, good
Right.
ideas that we could
That's right.
pursue that
That's
people
right.
could feel energized around, then we have people
Yep.
capable of doing it. So we need
Yeah.
to think about productivity in a different way than something that just goes to the bottom line, goes straight to the shareholders. It's really about how do we enhance and augment our people and really maximize the potential of every single person in our organization.
I think that's so well said. I think about a lot of people talk about developers with generative coding is here now, right? And so developers, is ChatGPT gonna, or there's now about 35 or more generative coding platforms out there. They're not going to replace developers. Developers can actually start to get their work done now, be more effective, and companies can increase their throughput on the product backlogs they have. Companies have years of product backlogs, right? So now you can actually start to increase your product, your product roadmaps can start to get unclogged. You can actually start to get things done. So yeah, more productive, better products, better services. And there's a need for more developers.
Right.
There's just going to be more software.
And a
So
higher level developer too,
yeah,
because if an entry level developer, you were just basically a code jockey,
that's right.
don't need that anymore. So it means that our
Right.
education is going to have to change. When people are coming in at that level, they're going to be
Yeah.
upskilled in a
Yeah.
significant way.
Yeah.
Even the people who are already in technical roles, they need to be upskilled to think about generative AI from a business and strategy perspective. And the
Yeah.
business people need to be upskilled in terms of understanding technology and how it works and how it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of upskilling across the board. And we have some
Yeah.
people who are really eager and curious and can take on a beginner's mind. Others may I just don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it becomes a real personal people issue of understanding where people are on that journey and taking that and giving yourself time as a leader and as an organization to hold space for those kinds of discussions. This is a very
Yeah.
human people
Hey,
issue, not just a technology issue.
well, now, I'll just tease out that we're starting a new business and site called developers.ai at Modev. And it's all about upskilling developers to, really embrace generative coding, to embrace the new organizational changes that are going to happen with generative coding now, the new opportunities. How do you manage a career in generative coding, which looks different than it did just, a year or two ago, definitely. And
Yeah.
so we're excited about that, and we're going to be launching next spring a new conference called Code Forward, which is all about this as well. So I'm excited about that, and look forward to chatting with you about that as a follow up.
Yeah, you mentioned a really good point, how career ladders are changing. Frankly, I think over the next 2 years, the career ladders are gonna look like a mess. It
Hmm.
is going to be all over the place because we're
Yes.
changing roles. We don't have the support. We don't have the training. The ladders just are going to be messed up for a while as we figure out what are the skills, what are the
Yeah.
capabilities we need, what does it mean to be at a higher level coder or marketer or
Hmm.
salesperson or a contact center person. what does that look like anymore? Because it's all being rewritten.
Everything's
So
changing.
we're going to be in this messy space for a while. And it's a key
Yep.
message we're trying to get across in the book. And I'll be talking about my keynote. We're going to be in a world of hurt if we are not able to adapt and be flexible and adaptive to all the changes that are coming around. And it is highly transformative,
Yes.
not always in a comfortable way. So it is by
Transformation isn't
far,
comfortable.
it's
Transformation,
not.
we separate from what we know. We get into that really uncomfortable space. That's when we do the metamorphosis. So are we
Yeah.
going to become a
And
butterfly is the question.
I invite people to sit and to luxuriate, maybe not luxuriate, but to really take that pause being in that
Hmm.
messy middle.
Hmm.
Because the messy middle is actually a gift because we're not anchored in the past and we
Right.
haven't arrived at the future. But it's a
Yeah.
time where we can exercise tremendous curiosity, be
Hmm.
intrigued by
Hmm.
what's possible. And because
Yes.
you're it's boundaryless at that point. It can be really disconcerting because you don't have
Right.
anything. So to hold space for ourselves and for each other during this time is really important. It's a matter of leadership.
Oh, I love it. I just love this conversation. I think you're spot on. You can feel it in the industry already. There's maybe a kind of an unease, but there's also a lot of hope, and there's a lot of promise, right, in the industry right now, and I think that's key as well. And I'm just
Mhm.
looking forward to getting together all the human beings at the conference, and we're going to meet a lot of new faces this year. I've been in this industry. This is our 6th year to do this conference, and it's evolved. There's a whole bunch of new folks coming, and that's exciting. That includes you. I know that you've got a little trip before you get to DC. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm heading out to the Nevada desert for Burning Man. This might be my third time going, and I just love it because of the art and the serendipity of meeting people from all around the world. Just love
Mm.
having. There's a saying, "Plan your burn, and then burn your plan." So
Oh,
I've done all
love
my
that.
planning, gone there, and
Right.
so talk about uncertainty and being in the messy middle. It is hot and dusty, and there might be rain
Mm.
this year. Who knows? But
Hmm.
I am looking forward. It's sort of my little journey to go and push myself to be open to new ideas and experiences and people.
Well, that's really cool. Well, I look forward to hearing about your experience there when you get to DC and you're turning right around after Burning Man and coming to Washington. So you'll be fresh off back to the default world,
Right.
and look
I'll
forward
be
to.
dusting off the dust, brushing
Yeah,
off the
that's
dust to
great.
get on
Well,
the plane.
we are, Charlene, we're so lucky. I'm so lucky as an organizer. Thank you again for being a part of it. You are, let's see, what day are you speaking? I'm not looking at the schedule right now.
I believe I'm speaking on Wednesday morning on the first day.
Wednesday morning. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Awesome. On the 6th. Well, you're going to catch Charlene on the main stage. She will be keynoting. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She's got another book coming out soon on AI strategy and the implications of generative AI. It doesn't have a title yet, so we will see what that title is. Maybe we'll have one
Hopefully
by
by
DC.
then I will have a title.
Yeah, if I think of any, I'll fire them over.
Thank you.
But exciting times, and thank you so much, Charlene. Look forward to seeing you in Washington, D.C. This has been Pete Erickson talking with Charlene Li. She is absolutely terrific to talk to, and um, she's got just such a great perspective on what's happening in the market right now. And you're going to be able to hear from Charlene and meet her in person at Voice and AI. Get all the information at voiceand.ai. It is September 5th through 7th. It's coming up, but it's definitely plenty of time to get your ticket and meet us in Washington, D.C. We're going to have a great time. I'm Pete Erickson. Thanks for joining us.